Hey, welcome into the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely, moving and grooving. I'm Maurice Patton. We are here for the next couple of hours talking local, regional, and national sports content here as we open Feast Week. Thanksgiving coming up later this week, and I guess it's a sports term because there's a lot of it going on this week. Big slate of college football later on in the week. Obviously, college basketball taking place all over the place, and high school football here locally winding down with Division One state semifinals and state championships looming. So a lot going on in the sports world, and we will be getting into a lot of it here over the next couple of hours. Wade, what's up?
What's happening, Mo? Good to be with you. Good to see everybody on this Monday. You're right. We have made it to one of the best weeks of the year because not only do you get to eat a bunch, not only do you get to enjoy the fellowship with the friends and fam, but you also get a treasure trove of sports goodies to enjoy over the next week or so as we kind of get things rolling down the stretch here in the month of November.
Absolutely. Plenty going on at every level of football that you might want. And so we'll be getting into a lot of that. In the next hour, we will check in with Steve Irvine of the Birmingham Banner. We thought things had kind of calmed down a little bit in Birmingham with the dismissal of Trent Dilfer earlier this fall and the insertion of Alex Mortensen as their interim coach. Things hadn't gotten a lot better on the football field, but things had calmed down around the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Well, they flared back up in a big way this weekend. We'll be checking in with Steve Irvine here in the second hour to talk about some off-field locker room activities that took place around UAB prior to their game this weekend. Crazy stuff. In the next segment, we will be checking in with Charles Pulliam of the Williamson Herald. Again, high school football playoffs winding down. We had quarterfinals in Division One this past weekend. We had semifinals in Division Two this past weekend. So we know a few teams that will be headed to Chattanooga for the Blue Cross Bowl the first weekend in December. We will find out more this weekend, but it looks as if Williamson County is going to be pretty well represented. And so, again, Charles Pulliam of the Williamson Herald coming in the next segment to talk about some of those teams and some of their chances to get once they get there to the Blue Cross Bowl in Chattanooga. Looking forward to that. We will also be talking some women's college basketball. We will get into some college football at both the FCS and the FBS levels. Talk a little hockey, get into some pro basketball as well, and big weekend in the college football ranks. Big Saturday. A couple of local teams had some big stuff going on this weekend. We'll get into all of that and more. And the Titans. They were at least entertaining yesterday, I guess.
Covered yet again, baby.
But we'll talk more about 3 straight weeks they've covered, I think I heard somebody say.
Yeah, I believe 4 out of 5, and took care of business. Had an onside kick to maybe win the game. Not the worst effort versus one of the better teams in the NFL yesterday.
That's interesting, and that's something I want to get into when we get into that segment at the top of the second hour as well. But yeah, the Titans, we will be getting to them and talking some other NFL activities from the past weekend as well. So again, big show. A lot to get into. Let's go ahead and get it rolling, I guess, with this weekend's results and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
On a Monday, folks, that means your rundown. We want to give a special tip of the cap to our friends at Zion Christian Academy. They bring you your rundown each and every single Monday, and ZCA offers a faith-based, Christ-centered education right here in Murray County. So give them a call today. That number is 931-388-5831, or you can visit zioneagles.org and schedule an appointment today. Once again, that's Zion Christian Academy, where they are prepared for college and equipped for purpose.
Friday night high school football action. Again, these were Division One quarterfinal results. These are Division II semifinal results. In Class 6A, Blackman picks up a 31-7 win over Maryville. In Division II AA, it was Battleground Academy 49, Boyd Buchanan 3. That is not a misprint. We will be talking more with Charles Pulliam about that one here in the next segment. Also in Division II AAA semifinal action, Brentwood Academy with a 38-7 win over Christ Presbyterian Academy. Battleground Academy gets a rematch with Franklin Road Academy. The Panthers with a 49-21 win over Lausanne. Centennial goes up to Paris, picks up a 45-24 win over Henry County. Don't know if they saw the Eiffel Tower or not, but big 5A win for the Cougars there. Huntington 42, East Robertson 20. Pearl Cone with a 33-7 win over Marshall County in Class 4A. Milan defeats East Nashville 38-21. It was defending Division IIA champion Nashville Christian going back to the Blue Cross Bowl with a 41-7 win over Oakland. Comes back for a 21-7 win over Green Hill. 21-17 win over Green Hill. Page 31 beats 21 in another comeback victory for the Patriots. University School of Jackson 31, Providence Christian 12. McKenzie on a last-second field goal knocks off host Richland 24-21 in Class 1A action. Coverage of that one on Main Street Preps and in the Pulaski Citizen. South Gibson stuns Springfield 27-21. It was Tyner Academy 34, Giles County 20. Again, coverage of that one at Main Street Preps and in the Pulaski Citizen. And Ravenwood goes on the road, picks up a 20-12 win over Whitehaven in Class 6A.
Bonus score from Friday. Man, they tried, and Lincoln County almost pulled off another upset, going on the road and falling 28-24 at Sevier County. Heck of a run, though, for Eddie Cunningham and the Falcons there. Let's switch gears. Let's go to girls basketball results from Friday. It was Cascade slipping by Eagleville 55-34. Lipscomb Academy topping Columbia Academy 65-34. Community all over Santa Fe 82-20. Cheatham County 41. Creekwood 37. It was Culleoka 62. Zion Christian 30. Forest picking up a 34-26 win over Fairview. Jackson County topping Greenbrier 63-33. Lebanon downing Brentwood on Friday night 57-34. Liberty Creek picking up a 52-39 win over Merrill Hyde. McEwen 69. Joe Burns 33. Murfreesboro Central Magnet 50-35 over Grundy County. It was Riverside Christian with a 57-35 win over Hampshire. Independence topping Stewart's Creek 50-39, beg pardon. And closing scores from us girls action on Friday was Waverly turning back Montgomery Central 39-17. Off to you, Mo.
In boys basketball action from Friday night, Eagleville with a 74-42 win over Cascade. Chattanooga Prep defeated West Creek 91-74. Lipscomb Academy with a 61-34 victory over Columbia Academy. Community down Santa Fe 61-57. Cheatham County with a 50-47 win over Creekwood. Zion Christian defeated Culleoka 63-56. Forest knocking off Fairview 43-37. Shepville all over Glencliff 79-18. Station Camp with a 59-29 win over Hunters Lane. It was Jackson County 88, Greenbrier 47. Brentwood defeated Lebanon 77-49. Joe Burns with a 54-43 win over McEwen. Liberty Creek 4 points better than Merrill Hyde 48-44. Grundy County defeats Murfreesboro Central by 10 70-60. Bartlett 67, Providence Christian 61. Richland on Saturday at East Hickman 70-36. It was Riverside Christian with a 52-30 win over Hampshire. Independence defeated Stewart's Creek 58-48, and Waverly down Montgomery Central 62-47. In men's basketball on Friday, it was Belmont defeating Fisk 96-49, and Tulsa defeated Austin P 84-75.
rev it up to Saturday, and let's go girls basketball action. Beginning our weekend in style. 61-39 was the score of CPA knocking off girls preparatory school. Wilson Central 75, Clarksville Northeast 17. Cookeville topping Mount Juliet 62-51. South Gibson turning back Dixon County 40-27. Ezel Harding picking up a 54-28 win over University High out of Memphis. Portland 70, Gallatin 51. It was Gallatin picking up a 52-48 victory over Clarksville Northwest on Saturday, however. Clarksville Academy 39, Kirkwood 37, Oneida 58, Laverne 47. Green Hill edging Livingston Academy 48-34. Loretto cruising over Columbia 61-31. Macon County winning 2 games on Saturday, one over Friendship Christian, one over STEM Academy, 39-22 in the first, 54-10 in the second. Bradley Central 75, Middle Tennessee Christian 64. It was Nashville Christian 65, Franklin Christian 32. Page picking up a big win 81-42 over Summertown. Portland 55, Clarksville Northwest 26, and Richland defeats East Hickman rather. Richland over East Hickman on Saturday in girls action 54-20.
In boys action on Saturday, Battleground Academy with a 63-39 win over Franklin County. It was Baylor defeating Providence Christian 56-38. Wilson Central defeated Clarksville Northeast 75-54. Beach with a 93-63 win over Coffee County. South Gibson 48, Dixon County 39. Clarksville Northwest with a 53-43 win over Gallatin. Portland also defeated Gallatin 56-44. Kirkwood defeats Clarksville Academy 76-55. Friendship Christian with a 55-51 win over Liberty Creek. It was Lipscomb Academy 48, Hillsboro 41. Columbia Central ending Loretto's 36-game win streak. The Lions picking up a 54-31 win down in County. Macon County defeats STEM Academy 69-27. Bradley Central defeated Middle Tennessee Christian in a thriller 79-78. Pickett County knocks off Mount Juliet 62-34. Upperman 57, Page 55. Clarksville Northwest 55, Portland 52. Upper Cumberland with a 75-66 win over STEM Academy. And Summertown edges Webb of Bell Buckle 57-55.
College hoops from Saturday. Ladies action saw Talladega defeating Fisk in a barn burner, 91-89.
Continuing with women's basketball action, it was Talladega defeating Fisk 91-89. Faulkner with a 77-64 win over UT Southern, and Cumberland defeats Kentucky Christian 84-50. On the men's side, it was Talladega.
You're delayed, Mo, so I'm going to run this through Saturday just to bring us up to speed and bring you up to speed there. Men's basketball on Saturday, Talladega over Fisk 91-89. Trevecca picking up a 98-75 victory over Tusculum. UT Southern, good win for head coach Andy Sharp and the Firehawks, 68-66 over conference rival Faulkner. Lipscomb 83, Western Carolina 62. College football action from Saturday locally. It was Charleston Southern versus TSU. Points were at a premium. Charleston Southern wins that game 7-6. Stop the presses, folks. MTSU has won a football game. They defeat Sam Houston 31-17. More on maybe what that means for the future of the Blue Raiders later in this show. 31-17 again, that final there. Vanderbilt 45, Kentucky 17. Tarleton State topping Austin Peay by the slimmest of margins, 45-44. Also, stop the presses. Tennessee defeats Florida in the Swamp 31-11. Staying up late for that one on Saturday. Stay up late. You watch the Preds lose 3-0 to the Avalanche. And then if you were really a glutton for punishment, you saw 2 of the worst teams in the NBA do battle. But the Grizzlies edged the Mavericks 102-96.
Let's see how this works. Sunday, women's basketball. Trevecca with an 80-38 win over Emory and Henry. Vanderbilt defeated Tennessee State 99-43, and the Lady Vols with an 88-35 win over Coppin State. In men's basketball down in the Grand Caymans, Middle Tennessee State picks up a 90-87 win over Murray State. Chip Walters, Mike's side for that one, getting a little Tropics time. And in the National Football League, it was the Seattle Seahawks 30, the Tennessee Titans 24. High school basketball today. These were double headers. This one started at 10, so there might be some finals out there somewhere on Siegel and Gallatin. A 2 o'clock tip for Hillsborough at Franklin. At 4, Harpeth takes on Waverly. At 5:30, Riverdale is at Wilson Central. 6 o'clock starts for Davidson Academy at Cheatham County, Battle Creek at Cornersville, Lawrence County at Lincoln County, Sycamore at Rossview, Clarksville Northeast at Station Camp, Santa Fe at Zion Christian, and Middle Tennessee Christian at Franklin Classical.
Let's go girls basketball action. Standalone games began at 9 a.m. this morning. Watertown was taking on Pearl Cone. At 10, we saw Brentwood versus Rockvale. Noon was Franklin County meeting Blackman. Huntland and Eagleville also set to do battle at noon, as were Green Hill and Shelbyville. 1 o'clock, John Overton versus Westmoreland. 2:30, we see Lipscomb Academy versus Providence Christian. Now we get into 3 o'clock tip-offs as Upperman will meet Stewart's Creek and Green Hill will tangle with Nolansville. 4 p.m. we'll see Munford at Wilson Central. 5:15 is your designated start time for Page versus Providence. That's Providence out of Florida, again at 5:15. 6 p.m. showdown for Nashville Christian, who's at CPA. 7 o'clock, Loretto versus Lebanon. Start time's unknown to us tonight, but we do see on our schedule Mount Pleasant at Forest and Portland at Mount Juliet.
Boys basketball action. This was an early morning go for Stewart's Creek and Page. Don't have a final for you. We'll see if we can come up with one. At 10:30, Antioch faced Tennessee Heat. Also at 10:30, it was Collinwood and Culleoka at Cornersville. At 1 o'clock, Martin Luther King was set to take on Hickman County. Also at 1 o'clock, it was Brentwood and Lipscomb Academy. A 1:30 start for Grace Christian out of Franklin and Huntland. At 2:30, it'll be Munford and Blackman. Also at 2:30, Stratford takes on Franklin County. At 4, McCallie faces Providence Christian. It's a 4:30 start for Laverne at Centennial. Also at 4:30, Community faces Mount Pleasant down at Cornersville. At 5 o'clock, Ensworth and Lawson will face off. At 5:30, it's Springfield and Loretto. At 5:35, Murfreesboro Central takes on Morristown West. 6 o'clock start for Father Ryan and Bearden, also for Merrill Hyde and Donaldson Christian Academy. At 7, Oak Ridge takes on Rockvale. 7:30 start for Cane Ridge and Laverne. At 8:30, it's Green Hill and Creekwood. Also at 8:30, Columbia Central takes on the host Lebanon Blue Devils. And a time we don't have, Nolansville and Smyrna will play sometime. Women's college basketball finals today. Belmont fell to Ohio State 64-56 in the finals of the Pink Flamingo. And in the Emerald Coast Classic, MTSU with a 54-48 win over Providence.
Coming down the stretch here, boys and girls, schedule for the men's basketball action. One game's already gone final. Tennessee just roughed up Rutgers a moment ago. 85-60 was your final there at the Players Era Festival in Las Vegas. Good to see the Vols fans out in Vegas during Thanksgiving week here. Belmont's taking on St. Francis. They're up big down the stretch with about a minute and a half left in that contest. The Coconut Hoops Royal Palm. That game began at 12:30. And again, Belmont should cruise to victory by the time we are done here in just a moment. MTSU's at George Washington, continuing action down at the Grand Cayman Islands. 4 p.m. is your designated start time there. Fisk and Montevallo will do battle here locally in more temperate conditions at 7 p.m. this evening. If you're looking for NHL action, we got you covered as the Panthers will come to town to take on the Preds after they got waxed by the Oilers. Good match up there in a cup rematch. Panthers looking for a little revenge tonight versus the Preds at 7 on FanDuel Sports South. Nuggets and Grizzlies. Jokic will come to town. You can see the MVP in action at 7 p.m. on FanDuel Sports South, or you can get tickets for fairly cheap, I'm quite certain, inside the FedEx Forum. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is your schedule for today. Those were your results from over the weekend, and that concludes today's rundown.
Your top story brought to you, as always, by the fine folks at Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story, and it's double-barreled action. Let's start at Food City Center in Thompson Bowling Arena as Nia Robertson had a record-setting performance for the Lady Vols yesterday. 11 of 19 from the floor, but more specifically, 10 of 16 from behind the arc, finished with 32 points. That 10 three-pointers is a single-game Lady Vol record. And again, UT defeated Coppin State 88-35. Tennessee with a total of 14 threes in that win. Maya Paldo knocked in one as well. Talasia Cooper hit one. Z Spearman with one. And Boyd with one. So 14 threes, but Nia Robertson led the way again. 10 threes, 32 points. Big win for the Lady Vols as they improved to 5-1 with that victory.
Good win for them. Record-setting performance, dominating from beyond the arc. 3 games last week, and they got easier as the week went along. Beat Belmont by 10, roughed up MTSU last Thursday, and then really cruised versus Coppin State. Good performance by all. Good job, for the ladies, kind of get things rolling. You got that week behind you, but buckle up. Now you got a nice little shiny date with UCLA, the number 3 team in the country, coming your way this weekend. So the competition will take a step up, and maybe those good vibes will carry over from what we saw last week.
You'd like to think that they would carry over, but as we've said on other occasions throughout this non-conference portion of the season, the games do get harder as you get closer to conference action, and that certainly seems to be the case for UT as they get ready to take on top 3 UCLA, number 3 UCLA. So that'll be a big one. Vanderbilt stays undefeated, improving to 6-0 with a 99-43 win over Tennessee State. Another big game from Michaela Blakes, Stop me if you've heard that. 24 points, 11 of 17 from the floor in just 21 minutes. Efficient.
Taking care of business, good effort there. Maybe not the most daunting or challenging non-conference slate thus far for the ladies on the campus of Vanderbilt, but, got to win, got to see some improvement. And it seems like, for the question marks we kind of had about how they would navigate the waters this season, they've certainly answered the challenge thus far. They've got a couple big games coming up down in the Virgin Islands later this week. So a chance to further take that step, kind of similar to UT in terms of your competition.
There we go. Big wins for both of our Southeastern Conference women's basketball programs here over the weekend, our top story. Let's go ahead and take a break as we get started with the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return, we'll be joined by Charles Pulliam of the Williamson Herald, talking a little high school football. Stick around.
Got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need...
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
3-3.
Be oh busy bee.
Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now I'm
busy
ready,
bee.
guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Welcome back in to the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely, and one of us is frozen, and I'm not sure if it's me or him. Wade, are you good?
We're good, brother. Good to see you as always.
Okay. Well, it's good to be seen. Better seen than viewed, as someone told me once. As we continue the weekend up, we are pleased to have joining us from the Williamson Herald, multimedia mogul, Charles Pulliam. You hear about jacks of all trades, and the following phrase is typically master of none. That is not the case with this guy. He does it all, and he does it well, and we're pleased to have him with us again. Charles Pulliam, good afternoon. Thanks for taking some time.
Yeah, of course, man. Happy to hang. Sorry, I probably sound a little hollow here. We're actively moving from home to home, and all my stuff's out. I don't know where my actual mic is either, too, but happy to be hanging, guys. Just there's a lot of moving pieces going on.
Way to battle through adversity early. We appreciate that about you,
Yeah,
Charles.
right. Come on.
Well, but again, this goes back to what I was just saying. Charles holds himself to such a high standard, but we're pleased to have you under any circumstance. Charles, the question coming out of Friday night had to be, who is Jay Pace?
Who is Jay Pace? Oh, man. Are you specifically referring to a BGA setup here?
I am specifically referring to a BGA setup here because, as we mentioned earlier in the show, Williamson County Williamson County is assured of having at least 3 teams in Chattanooga, possibly a 4th, because, Battleground Academy throttled Boyd Buchanan 49-3 in the Division II AA semifinals. Brentwood Academy took care of business against Christ Presbyterian Academy in Division II AAA. You've got an all Williamson County Class 5A semifinal matchup between Centennial and host Page, and Ravenwood takes on Southwind in a battle of unbeatens in Class 6A. But going back to Battleground Academy, I figured we would start there because, again, the Wildcats 49, Boyd Buchanan 3, and there was a video coming out of a early week Boyd Buchanan practice where Hall of Fame coach Gary Rankin was quoted as saying that BGA wasn't a physical football team. And
I think
it clearly made its way back to Franklin.
I
don't know if Bobby Bentley or if anybody has talked to Bobby
Yeah.
Bentley about this or anything of the sort, but man, that's wild stuff this time of year.
Yeah, sorry, you threw me off with Jay Pace, actually, the fellow who shared that video.
Well, he's from Carthage.
If I'm not mistaken, he might not be allowed back on Boyd Buchanan's campus either for sharing said video.
Yes.
But it really was one of those setups where, Coach Gary Rankin, it's one of those post-game huddle sort of things. And I mean, as a journalist, I don't really do anything with what I see. I'm always there. I want to hear what the coach says, but I'm not recording or taking notes or anything. But I'm all about seeing what a coach says to a team at the end of a game if I can. This was shared publicly, and the exact quote was, "They ain't a physical team," talking about BGA. And let's just say the BGA boys took that to heart. And if I'm not mistaken, they might have just been replaying it over and over and over and over again. Mr. Nate Fleming returned from a knee injury too. He's been playing on a torn meniscus a couple weeks ago. He had surgery. Nate set the tone up front. Obviously, Boyd Buchanan went, and they actually scored the first points of the game on a field goal. But then, like the remember the Titans kind of thing, like don't give them another yard kind of happened. I think they had 38 yards of offense in the entire game and went backwards most of the time. And Fleming kind of lit up the line, was unblockable. The boys just rolled and absolutely dominated. They showed not only their physical stature, but also their speed. Max Curry on the outside, Maddox Porter on the outside too. These guys rolled 49-3. That's the worst loss for Coach Rankin in his time at Boyd, and really the worst loss since, well, and again, this is a dominant team. They only got 3 losses in the last 3 seasons, but last year they lost to CPA 34-7. But last time they haven't had a touchdown in a game since 2018. It was a showing of strength for BGA for not being a physical team. Coach Bentley said it too. Thanks for the motivation.
Taking the comments to heart, and just absolutely. I mean, that is when you hear the phrase bulletin board material. You wonder if that even still exists in 2025. And he took care of business, kind of vintage bulletin boards material style there, Charles. It sounds like.
Oh, definitely, and that's. I mean, again, it just goes to one of those things where if I'm on the sideline and I'm on sidelines, Mo does it too, where the same kind of things where I'm walking next to the sticks if I'm covering a game. I'm taking notes of what are saying it, but I'm never actually using it. I might talk to a coach afterward about it, but those are comments that I really never really use or project. And this one was all of those and then some. And sure enough, it fueled a BGA team that didn't necessarily need the fuel, but they definitely leaned into it. And if I'm Coach Bentley, it really was like, all right, well, I got my thing. I don't even have to say anything. Here's what the other coach thinks about you boys. Good luck. Go get them.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, Charles, I had that conversation with Stephen Hargis of the Chattanooga Times Free Press. I've had that conversation with other folks. I mean, there are some venues and some situations that feel like they're kind of off limits from a journalistic standpoint. You might hear something that you go back and ask about later, but I'm not going to quote somebody in a post-game huddle or in a post-practice huddle or on the sidelines or something like that. You go back because you may not have heard it the way you think you did. It may not have been meant the way you think it did. It might not have been for print or for distribution the way it was. I don't feel like on the other hand, in this day and time, it's almost an every mic is hot type of thing as well. But
that's well said. Yeah. Somebody is
again, Jay Pace is persona non grata on the Boyd Buchanan.
Well, it was.
Go ahead.
Regardless, just going back and thinking about that game as a whole, I really felt like this is a BGA team that they didn't necessarily need the added motivation, I think is a good way to put this. This is a team that's kind of been on a mission ever since losing the CPA in the finals last year. And I know there was a loss to Franklin Road Academy in late September too, but that was kind of a fluke game of coming off a win against Pearl Cone on a short week. They lost their leading linebacker or running back to a broken foot. All these different things kind of stacked into that. It was just kind of a weird week overall. And Coach Bentley will talk about that. And here, the opportunity to potentially see that team again was the motivation to get to that final. But hey, you'll take a little bit of, hey, these guys don't respect you kind of thing too, because that'll add to it. And any extra fuel you'll take, especially in the postseason. But just what a performance from these guys. Caden Maribel has been one of the most prolific scoring quarterbacks we've seen for several years here. And his numbers overall are just insane. He's thrown for more than 8,300 yards in his career now. With the touchdown numbers, they're going to put him right there in the TSSAA record books all time. So impressive. He had another 4 touchdowns, but him and Max Curry connected 3 times in the first half. it was 28-3 just like that. And it could have been more, but Boyd just wasn't going anywhere. They couldn't do anything. And as impressive as the BGA offense was, that defense was even more crazy. Evan Kellum opened the third quarter with an interception return, just like that. Just keep it rolling, 35-3 like that. It was just heartbreak city for a Boyd Buchanan team that's really talented, but absolutely could do nothing against BGA. It was impressive.
In Division II AAA, Brentwood Academy with a 38-7 win over Christ Presbyterian Academy, getting back into the Blue Cross Bowl for the first time in a while, because it's been a McCallie-Baylor stranglehold on those two spots in Chattanooga for the last little bit. Those two met in the semifinals, and I'm sure that was a little bit of a culture shock for both those programs. But Brentwood Academy to face Baylor in the D2 3A finals next weekend.
This was that week 3 chaos that we had in the mid-state. Going back to early September, there was a big lightning storm that came through. Almost half the games in Middle Tennessee ended up getting canceled. And sure enough, that was one of them, a Baylor Brentwood Academy game. Baylor was going to Brentwood Academy. We were all lined up. Peyton Manning's there. Jelly Roll shows up. It's the big time hang to go watch the boys play. And then a lightning storm cancels it all. We don't get to see how good a Brentwood Academy team might be. And sure enough, they just keep chipping everybody off, and they are unbeaten. But that true test wasn't there in week 3, and now we get to see it in the state championship. Brentwood Academy returning for the first time since 2018, and that capped that string of 4 straight titles that time. Or was it 3 or 4? But regardless, they were right there consistently. Hadn't made it back since 2018. So this is a big breakthrough for Coach Paul Wade and those boys. Lots of talent out there. I love what Cruz Jenkins has done taking over. George McIntyre, that freshman over at UT right now, has kind of still been the big brother to Cruz at quarterback. Those guys have talked on the phone consistently throughout the season, just about little stuff. Do this, do that a little better. But Larry Sanders has been, that guy. He's really turned into a dude rushing for more than 1,700 yards on the year. He had 205 yards and 4 touchdowns in the win against CPA last week, 38-7 victory. You can't say enough about what CPA's been able to do in the playoffs as well, too. But for Brentwood Academy, this was kind of that mission to get back there. And now we get to see the game we didn't get to see several weeks ago, which is really exciting, because I think this really does pit the two best in D2 AAA against one another. So I'm excited for it.
As we pivot, Charles, perhaps into the public school waters, I'm curious, before we transition, any other D2 nuggets jump out to you in particular? And then overall, what maybe jumped out to you this week across the state?
Oh, man. Do you guys want to see part of that game, seeing Baylor play against this, and DGG, the guy out there, his 7 touchdowns and 431 yards against McCallie were absolutely, video game like numbers. And we see that all the time from this man, but this is against McCallie. Like, this is the other great powerhouse here. This is the rematch of the championships. This is all these different things. And this kid runs 32 times for 431 yards and 7 touchdowns. I mean, insane numbers just against McCallie. Our friends at the Times Free Press were doing that in 4 games. He's rushed for more than 1,000 yards against that team. I mean, these are, again, the kind of like statistical nerd nuggets that you're like, what the heck? There's no way, right? But he's unstoppable against them. And McCallie is a fantastic team. So I'm excited to see what BA is going to be able to do. They got some great guys out there, but they haven't seen the power of this kid and how he runs. I mean, every time he touches the ball, it's a highlight reel. They list him at 6 foot and about 205 pounds, but he seems so much bigger than that already. So I'm so excited for that game to be the one that closes out opening day of championship week at Finley Stadium. And, it's not the Baylor McCallie thing there where we're going to see them back to back again like that. But there's going to be a huge contingent of Middle Tennessee there. And then for Brentwood Academy to be back there, I know the Eagles will have a big following. That's going to be a fun way to close out the first day. And I think that's the one I'm most excited about, that first day. And then, hey, we get to kick it off with FRA and BGA in an all-middle region. And then let's sandwich that around Jared Curtis playing one more time over there for Nashville Christian, too, against USJ. I think they're unstoppable, too. there's no way really for USJ. But hey, let's see Curtis play one more time too. It's going to be a busy Thursday, but I like how we get to close things out there.
That one should be fun in particular, Charles. You got USJ, whose offensive coordinator is near and dear to our hearts in Middle Tennessee. Bo Wallace, going. He gets to see a kid that maybe reminds himself, of him back in the day at Giles County there in Curtis. Should be pretty epic. You mentioned the D2 matchups alone are kind of salivating already.
Well, and that's those ones to be set already. That's that beauty of the way we get to finish here, and we got to get to just let those marinate for an extra week, which I'm pretty excited about overall. And they're games that these teams often have prepared for. I mean, minus that USJ and Nashville Christian one. I mean, Brentwood Academy's already papered out what they were supposed to do against Baylor, and now they're just doing some adjustments, and we get to see what it looks like 8 weeks later. And likewise on the other side, and BGA and FRA know each other all too well. I mean, that's a true region battle right there. So these guys know each other too, and that's where I think getting that opportunity to have that true championship feel against with some rivalry feeling to it is really neat. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
You mentioned DGG, David Gabriel Georges for Baylor. Stephen Hargis over the weekend posted on his Facebook that Baylor's coach asked him coming out of pregame, say, how many you think you can go for tonight? Kid said 400.
He was right on the money there, and then in the fourth, his last touchdown was an 84-yard rip up the sideline, and that's probably where it messed up 400 for him, because he ended up running the extra 50 yards on that.
Not a bad night at the office.
He was right on the money.
Yeah. Class 5A, Page and Centennial. Again, speaking of region rivals, those two get another shot at each other, or Centennial gets another shot at Page. But, we had Taylor, and I just lost his last
Taylor Burks. Yeah.
We had Taylor Burks on Coach's Corner on Thursday, and his reception wasn't great, sort of like mine today. But, the point was, they've been through a lot this year. They've been on the road each of their playoff games, and they'll be on the road again this weekend. But the resilience of this team and these kids is really been remarkable under the circumstances.
Oh, without a doubt. Well, you go back to September 26th there at home against Page. Page wins 52-17 at Centennial. And ever since then, it's kind of been a little bit of a different thing. Obviously, there's so much off the field distraction things going off, and I just don't even want to go into that, because it's all about how these kids have responded. Mitchell Grandjean at quarterback has been just that heart leading kind of guy. And this is a guy who was playing for Page last year at quarterback and started in the championship game for the Patriots. And now he gets to lead his team at Centennial against Page for the opportunity to try to go to play for a championship. Absolutely amazing storyline in that alone. And I've talked to Coach Rathbone about just that setup too. And, he's got Cameron Cruze coming in, leading the way for his team at quarterback. You got Drew Rempel. They were duking it out in August about who was going to be the starter. Either one are very capable young men. Cruze's been amazing up front, leading that offense for Page, which is actually the most explosive offense for Coach Rathbone in his tenure. So seeing what they've been able to do is pretty neat. Now they get to go against their former QB one more time. But going back to late September, this Centennial team under Coach Burks and that great, Montario Hardesty's leading the offense. These guys, those assistants, what they've been able to do with these boys. It's a player-led team, and it's fascinating what they've been able to do. They lost to Nolensville in that big region game, I think, in mid-October. Now they've won 5 straight. They got things rolling, beat James Lawson and Hillsborough to close that regular season. And these wins on the road in the playoffs are not come easy. Like, they've absorbed blows and just found a way to keep going. 38-28 at Station Camp, 38-19 at Memphis Central. And then they dominate over at Henry County. And, Henry County is one of those teams, once you kind of get that lead, it throws them off a little bit. And they're just so explosive with Malachi Steele, Gavin Johnson. Remember, Gavin won the 400-meter race at track and field in the spring. He truly is one of the fastest kids in the state. He could say that. He's a state champion in track and field. And on top of that, Steele's right there with him, and those guys are running relays together. Just thinking about Mitchell Grangene's ability to throw to some of those fast guys out there. This team's incredibly explosive. And ultimately, when we were chatting a little bit about it, this Centennial team is so much different than what they were 2 weeks ago, let alone 2 months ago when Paige saw them. And it's not going to be an easy take. I really think Centennial can push a lot harder than they ever had, and they got nothing to lose. This is their second time in school history that they've ever been in the state semifinals, and now they're going to the Page team that is expected to win. All the pressure is on the Patriots here, I feel like, and Centennial, and everybody thinks like, well, man, they lost 52-17 2 months ago. This is going to be the pushover. That's that locker room talk, that chatter that you could motivate your team with to be like, no, nobody expects you to win. So just go play your ball, see what happens. Grangene knows these guys well. Think about all that. I mean, just an incredible opportunity for Centennial. And the last time they were there, it was Tyrell Dotson's senior year. Yeah, just excited for him, guys, man. That's the one. That's my Friday game I got to be at, I think.
Not a bad assignment, I would imagine, in the grand scheme of things, Charles.
Ravenwood hosting Southwind in the 6A semis.
Battle of unbeatens, man. Yeah. No, that's thinking of my Friday night and what I'd have to try to do if I could go to 2 games.
In your 6A semis, you've got Ravenwood hosting Southwind, and somebody's going to pick up their first loss of the year.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that one.
Coach Rodriguez and that crew at Ravenwood have been, their only loss was that one at Houston in the semis last season. In the last 2 years, they've just put together this run. And so many people talk about.
Should be interesting.
Yeah, so many
Charles
talk about
Pulliam of the Williamson Herald joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Alliance of Columbia. Charles, we appreciate you taking some time with us.
Gotcha. Well, it was a lot of fun, guys. Looking forward to covering more and hope to see you guys again sometime. All right.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Charles.
See ya.
Let's take a break. While we do so, I'm going to take one as well here on the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Y'all come back.
Columbia Power and Water Systems is dedicated to bringing our customers reliable, local service. Whether you're turning on a light switch, your faucet, or streaming on TV, our dedicated team members from here in Murray County work every day to keep you on. If you need us, call us 931-388-4833 or visit cpws.com. CPWS, local service, local support.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Nashville's Nutcracker, presented by Nashville Ballet, returns to TPAC November 29th through December 28th. This holiday season, audiences will journey with Clara and the Nutcracker Prince through Nashville's history and the land of sweets. Tickets on sale at NashvilleBallet.com.
Welcome back into the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. The FCS playoff brackets were announced yesterday, and despite going 11-1, winning the Ohio Valley Conference and sustaining its only loss against SEC foe Kentucky, Tennessee Tech drew the number 13 seed in the playoffs. They will open play Saturday against visiting North Dakota. A win would send them on the road for the second round at fourth seed at Tarleton State. Tech has been ranked in the top 10 for the past few weeks, as high as number 8, I think. And I don't know that this was what the Golden Eagles expected. I don't know that Bobby Wilder or anybody out of Cookeville is saying anything, along those lines. I mean, you get there, you're just going to take your shots and go. But and this sounds a little odd to me.
Yes and no, right? Because I mentioned it that week of the Kentucky game. Tennessee Tech, for all the magic that they've been doing, they have not been getting any favors from the committee because of their schedule. And, I mentioned it at the time. Got nothing but love for our friends in, Wilson County and Cumberland. But when you have a school like Cumberland on your schedule, while Montana States of the world and others are going out and playing not 1, not 2, but 3 FCS opponents, kind of did them some disservice, unfortunately. And, did I think they would maybe fall this far to 13th? Maybe not quite as much, but the schedule that they produced did not really do them any favors in terms of the postseason bracket. And you got that little element still, it feels like, of, okay, we know you had a good year, but we haven't seen you in a while. Haven't made the playoffs since 2012 or 2013, I believe is the last time the Golden Eagles
12,
were there.
I think it was.
It's almost just like, hey, we see you and we respect you had a great season, but we got to save some room for the folks that we're used to seeing on an annual basis here as well. It's how it feels like to me.
Yeah, and that, that makes sense. I don't know that it's an acceptable explanation, but it's a plausible explanation, I guess. Your top 4 seeds are North Dakota State is the 1, UC Davis is the 8, Lehigh is 5, again, Tarleton State is 4, Montana's the 3, Mercer is the 6, Stephen F is 7, and Montana State is 2nd. So, I mean, it is kind of your usual cast of characters to some degree in those top 8 spots and getting those first round buys. But again, and maybe it is just as simple as they kind of doubted Tennessee Tech's schedule with that Cumberland game on there and with the Kentucky game late, that obviously, as we spoke with Noah McKay on Friday, they did lose that ball game, but you just would have hoped for better for them. But maybe this is, where they're supposed to be. I don't know if they can make a run from there or not, but because North Dakota, while not seeded, is a traditionally pretty tough FCS program. So Tech will have its hands full on Saturday right from the jump.
And, the other thing that doesn't really do them any favors, we even talked about it with Noah last week, right? Chattanooga, one of their worst seasons in recent memory, finishing the year 5-7. Davidson goes 2-10. These are kind of your FCS non-conference games that you're looking at. And then we've talked about, how up and down the Ohio Valley Conference has kind of been. So the best of the best, even in a squeaker. That's why Noah said, too, don't be surprised if maybe they try and run up a big score. Didn't cover the spread by any stretch of the imagination in that 3-point win on Saturday. But hey, maybe a little extra fuel for the fire, a little extra motivation. You mentioned Lehigh. We've obviously kept tabs on them a couple times this season. But how about the Love? First ever appearance for the Ivy League. They get not 1 but 2 teams in. Even though Harvard lost the big one to Yale over the weekend, both of them sneak in the field, and both of them, going to have some FCS aspirations. First ever bids for the Ivy League coming to play.
That's pretty wild. On the ice, we talked about Nashville returning to play after the Global Series and the split against Pittsburgh over in Stockholm. They came back on Saturday night, dropped a 3-0 decision to the Colorado Avalanche. Hardly unexpected. And now they're kind of out of the frying pan into the fire as the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers come to Bridgestone tonight. The Panthers 11-9-1, and Nashville still sitting on 6 wins. So doesn't get any easier.
No, Godspeed to the Preds. They will need it. As I mentioned in the rundown, the Panthers got embarrassed over the weekend by the Oilers. They're going to be rolling up their sleeves with a little bit of a point to prove. And, the fans will start trickling in as well, because nothing more is better than for Florida fans saying, hey, I could stay around Florida and spend all week with my family for Thanksgiving, but going to Nashville and partying and watching a hockey game sounds like a hell of a lot better proposition. So don't anticipate a massive home ice advantage as big as we might think for the Preds tonight. Best of luck.
You do paint a pretty picture, Mr. Neely. Memphis 102, Mavericks 96 on Saturday night. That's 2 straight for the Grizzlies now. And that's probably as far as it goes because the Nuggets come to town tonight. But what is up with Ja and Clay?
You tell me. What's going on? We got some is it a beef or what's going on here?
There looked to be some beef post game. Ja, who I believe was in street clothes, was mouthing at Clay after the game, and Clay was mouthing back and made some comments afterwards that he just hopes that Ja can get his stuff together and stay in the league, basically. I mean, yeah, there's beef. I
I'm seeing it. I love listen, look, I like Clay here. It's funny to run your mouth when you're on the bench, which take it for what it's worth. I mean, you got Klay Thompson, who's at the tail end of his career. You got Ja, who knows where his career goes from here. I mentioned in the rundown, these are the 2 of the worst teams in the Western Conference. It's only befitting that we got 2 guys jawing at each other when they're on 2 of the worst teams in the Western Conference.
What's he say? As you mentioned, he was really just running his mouth, and he's been running his mouth for a long time. It's funny to run your mouth on the bench. It's kind of the story of his career so far, just leaving us wanting more. We all want to see him out there and do his best, but he's just been letting a lot of other stuff get in the way of that. We need that in the NBA. We need our best players to be out there, and when you're a star, it comes with a great responsibility. I hate to see that go to waste.
Hey, and Clay can say that, he's the wily old veteran now at this point, as I mentioned in his career. So trying to maybe speak a little truth. He hasn't been the only one that has tried to speak a little truth to 12 down there in Memphis. And two teams, 2 cream puffs kind of with a pillow fight on Friday, and Clay with a little clap back for Ja. It'll be curious to see how those words ring true, maybe per se after the trade deadline this year.
James Harden with a franchise record 55 points Saturday as the Clippers knock off Charlotte 131 to 116.
Holy moly. Speaking of guys in the twilight of their career, speaking of turning back the clock, baby. Yeah, Harden just said, get out of the way and let me cook. This is a James Harden fantasy, finally. It's like that old Twilight Zone episode where at the end, the young man who loves to read books, the world has exploded and there's nothing left but books. He says, finally, now I can do what I've always wanted to do. That's what I thought when I heard this stat line for James Harden. Finally, you're telling me all I got to do is go out and score points? I like that.
I can do that. Hold my beer. Yeah, there we go. Harden with 55. That's going to do it for hour number 1 here of the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Come back for hour number 2. Let's talk a little football. Let's talk a lot of football. Stick around. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Is your internet slowing you down? It's time for an upgrade. Whether you're at home, working from your home office, or at your business, it's time to unleash the speed you need with speeds up to 1 gig at CPWS for as low as $70 a month. Give us a call, 931-375-7777. Local service, local support, CPWS.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
We continue with hour number 2 of the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. Final score from Nissan Stadium yesterday, Seattle 30, Tennessee 24. And again, it's kind of what we've come to expect, but, you know, there were bright spots, as there have been throughout the season. Cam Ward rushes for his first touchdown of the season, throws for a score, does not turn it over, or did not have an interception anyway. I don't think he had a fumble either. Chim Dike with a 90-yard punt return for a touchdown, his second punt return score in 3 weeks, and third of the season, I believe. So, you know, getting a little bit of a boost from the youngsters, which is kind of what this team needs.
Kind of what they need, kind of really all you've got to look forward to really is just kind of seeing that development. You're right. Ward kind of had that crazy look in his eye. It was really cool to see him. He spent a lot of extra time downfield levels hanging out with him before the game, just signing autographs, thanking everybody for coming, doing the right things, which doesn't matter one iota in terms of what we see on the field, but it's cool to see him still as committed and as invested as he is when he's got every right to want to check out on a team that was 1-9. Coming into yesterday's game. But on the field, yeah, had that crazy look in his eye. And on that very first drive, Titans are absolutely moving the ball, and then tragedy strikes, and they have to settle for 3. If they had gotten 7, if they had maybe put a little extra pressure on Seattle, I don't know if it would have been enough to probably get them over the hump. But would have been nice to see, and you're right. Extra effort on him on the ground. He was elusive in the pocket and decisive finally for the first time, going downfield and making plays with his legs. Didn't need to rush crazy amounts. He did have a 14-yarder that kind of oohed and awed the crowd a little bit, but did a good job of sliding as well. So taking off when he needed to and getting down when he needed to, and then throwing the ball to whoever the heck the receivers are for the Titans these days. He did a decent enough job of putting things together. And yeah, you know, 6-point loss. You got a chance late to maybe come back and win the game. What more could you ask for the Titans? A close loss is about the best case scenario. I hate to say it, because you get the excitement, you build the oohs, you build the ahs, and you keep your tankathon status firmly intact.
Whoever the receivers are, on at least 2 occasions, that was Xavier Restrepo, the undrafted rookie free agent out of Miami, where he and Cam played together. Restrepo finished his career at Miami as, their all-time leading receiver in terms of receptions. I think it was, not yardage, but so it's a guy who has caught the ball from Ward, got down close to the goal line on one, and Seattle's defense held him out. But to your point, that opening drive, it looked like it was going to be really fruitful. They wound up having to settle for the field goal, and the Titans are the only team in the NFL who has not scored a touchdown on their opening drive this season. So you're really kind of hoping they might be able to punch it in right there, but it wasn't to be. Again, I'm kind of at a loss at this point. I guess all you look for is just improvement some kind of way, and maybe this is it. It looks as if Cam Ward's best games have been against some of the best defenses in the league. He has this one yesterday against Seattle, throws for 256 yards and a touchdown on 28 of 42. But before that, the Broncos, the Rams, and the Texans were arguably his best games, and arguably those are the best defenses that Tennessee has seen.
Real quick, though, the second Texans game, the one at home, not the one where they got shut out on the road. That is worth pointing out. But, yes, look solid. Seattle kind of, I'm telling you, it's hard to describe unless you're there, but the intensity for both teams looked a little flip-flopped. It looked like Seattle was a team that maybe didn't have as much to play for, and coming off the heels of a bad loss the week prior, the Titans had a little extra juice for whatever reason, but didn't pay out because, yes, Seattle does take care of business. They are, still one of the better teams in the NFL, and, we didn't see the meltdown yet again. Pretty doggone efficient afternoon from Darnold, who's 16 of 26 passing, 244 yards and a couple of scores. Titans defense didn't really put a ton of extra pressure on him. Other kind of small disappointment was hoping to see Dearness Jones. The Titans just traded him to the Seahawks a couple weeks ago. He didn't suit up yesterday. Would have been nice to see him go against his former team, but saw a little bit of a glimpse, and that's quietly whispering. That's 2 or maybe even 3 performances in a row from the Titans offensively, maybe even throw special teams in there, of course, showing a little promise and kind of at least giving you a ever so faint light at the end of the tunnel, perhaps heading into next year.
And as you mentioned, Seattle improving to 8-3 with that win, which they kind of needed to, because the Rams picked up a victory against Tampa Bay last night, and the 49ers going at it tonight against Carolina. The NFC West is still a dogfight.
Still a dogfight, but man, oh man, the Rams basically, I'm not sure of any team in the NFL as far as maybe winning the Super Bowl, which is crazy to think about at this point in the season. The only team that's even close, though, is the Rams, because when the offense is humming like they were last night, when the defense is wreaking havoc like they were last night and even knocking Baker out of the game, the Rams look like the most complete team by a mile. But I still don't know if I trust them all the way, but they are clearly the team that I perhaps trust the most from what we've seen thus far through their 11 games.
In addition to the Rams and yesterday's game at Nissan, the first team to win 10 games in the NFL this year, you may not want to mention this too close to Amy Adams Strunk, because the New England Patriots improved to 10-2 with their win over Cincinnati yesterday.
Yeah, 9 in a row, right? They somehow defy the odds. This is exactly the blueprint that we saw with Vrabel in his best years in Tennessee. Take a roster that's not really the greatest just yet, but absolutely squeeze every ounce out of it. And, it wasn't a pretty win, and they had to come from behind, and they had some stinkers near the goal line. They snapped the ball, 9 times in a row from inside the 10-yard line, and still came away with no points on that one particular defensive stand by the Bengals. The Bengals stood tall for an defense as bad as they are. They actually showed a little spine. But yes, impressive performance from the Patriots. They've won the 10, 9 straight. The only real big question now is, can they sustain it? Because that injury to Will Campbell, their star offensive lineman yesterday, they're saying 4 to 6 or 6 to 8 for him now. And that would be a big, big blow for a team that really cannot afford any major injuries. They're kind of like a souped up version of the Titans. They need everything to go well and them to be healthy to get to 10-2. Otherwise, they're kind of a middle of the pack type team. And so his loss will be key coming down the stretch here.
We talked last week about the playoffs basically starting this week for Kansas City. Well, they are 1-0 in the playoffs after beating Indianapolis yesterday in overtime. But a win's a win, 23-20.
Yeah, and man, for the first time all season, Kansas City had been, 0-6 in one-score games after they went 11-0 in one-score games last year. We saw the luck of the Chiefs, if you will, from last season carry over for the first time this season. We saw that. Or the other way to look at it is, man, oh man, did we see the Colts absolutely kind of get exposed a little bit yesterday. They were not up to their usual standards. Jonathan Taylor, Tinker Taylor finishes with 53 yards on the ground. It was a pretty, not epic collapse, but it was a borderline epic collapse the way they really let that game get away from them in the fourth quarter, and then obviously losing it in overtime. Butker with 5 field goals in the victory.
You want to talk about a team letting one get away from them? Philadelphia led Dallas 21-0 at one point. Dallas gets a field goal in overtime to win it 24-21.
Yeah, and talk about two different tales of 8-3. You got the Chicago Bears, and I tell you they're 8-3, and you are absolutely clicking your heels. You know, you're not going to win the Super Bowl, but you are absolutely loving life. You're just whistling going down the streets. You're loving things. And if I tell you the Eagles are 8-3, you're saying, oh my God, the world is ending. This is the worst loss. This has been the worst stretch we've been on. The sky is falling. It looks horrible, but that's where we are. And yeah, the Eagles, that was a pretty epic collapse by them. And Dallas showing just enough flicker in their postseason hopes to maybe keep themselves alive. That was a crazy comeback. And yes, the Eagles back to the drawing board. They got a couple tricky games, including that big one coming up later this week on Thanksgiving versus the Bears. Then they got to take on the Chargers in LA. Bills are still on the schedule down the stretch. It won't be easy for the champs if they want to head into the postseason with a lot of momentum.
You know, I mentioned that was an overtime win for Dallas. It was not. It was basically a walk-off, though. Aubrey from 42 yards with 3 seconds to play. So, my bad. Stuff starting to run together on me there.
I should have went to the closet and got out my Brandon Aubrey jersey and wore it on the show today because, yeah, he was stones right there at the end. Not like you said in overtime, but pretty much a at the gun there effort from the young buck.
Shedeur Sanders 1-0 as a starter. For what that's worth, and Cleveland wins a ball game. It was the Raiders, and it was 24-10, but you know, he was the first Cleveland Browns debuting starting quarterback to win in their last 18. Their previous 17 first-time starters at quarterback had each lost. So what's it mean? I don't know, but he's 1-0.
Yeah, I gave you guys that stat last week, and it's still just this mind-bending, right, that they had been through such a run of awful play in terms of quarterbacks debuting. And, you know, not the sexiest of lines, 11 of 20. A lot of the passes were short, kind of like they were in the previous week when he came in off the bench. But, I mean, hey, you're talking about a guy that was drafted at the back end of the draft. You're trying to keep things pretty simple for him. The bad news for the Raiders, Cleveland, as inept as their offense is, and keeping things simple with a rookie quarterback, they're still enough to send you home with a loss yesterday.
Yeah. Shedeur picked up his first touchdown pass. It was a dump off and long run for 66 yards by former UT Vol Dylan Sampson there, also a rookie. They are kind of dealing. We talked over the offseason about how crowded that quarterback room is, but the running back room with Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson is not a bad one either.
Yeah, mention that in the summer, right? You draft 2 quarterbacks and then say, hold my beer, let me draft 2 running backs as well. Let's just, double up at every position. Stay tuned in the 26th draft, and we'll see how many receivers we can draft. But decent enough win for them, 3-8, the elite defense. It's going to be real interesting, Mo, down the stretch, right, to see if Myles Garrett, with a team that is as bad as the Browns, is going to be your defensive player of the year. A couple weeks ago, in that loss, well, there's been a lot of losses, but in that loss to the Patriots, he was wreaking havoc. And, he's still going to be a guy that will be heard from. And they got the 49ers coming up, Sunday this week. And then the Tennessee Titans, we got Cam Ward versus Shedeur, just like everybody thought. We just thought it would be 1 versus 2 in the draft and not 1 versus 492, right?
Yeah. You mentioned Garrett, 18 sacks on the season with his 3 yesterday of Cleveland's 10 total. The record is 22 and a half. Michael Strahan said it in 2001. TJ Watt tied it in 2021. Garrett needs 5 to break it in 6 games.
He's a massive betting favorite now. He's a minus 1,000 bet to win, which is still just mind-blowing considering how bad the rest of the team is. We're talking about a generational type season here. Micah Parsons and Will Anderson sitting there at 2 and 3 respectively. They're not even the same realm as Garrett. It's his award to lose, barring something crazy happening like an injury.
Meanwhile, Vegas's 10 points was, I guess, the impetus for Chip Kelly getting gone. It was announced earlier today that Kelly has been dismissed as Raiders offensive coordinator.
Man, tough
break. He goes back to college.
Yeah, I was going to say, what a difference a year makes. This time last year, he's getting ready to lose to Michigan again, but go on to still win the national championship. He's got a better offense if he would have stayed at Ohio State this year with those weapons at receiver in particular than if he would taken the job at the Raiders. It did not work out well for Pete. It did not work out well for Chip, and we already have seen one domino fall.
Yeah. Speaking of dominoes fall, and more on that in a minute. Jameis Winston is nothing if not entertaining. Caught a touchdown pass in addition to throwing a pair in the Giants' loss in overtime to Detroit yesterday. But in the aftermath of that Giants loss, they fired their defensive coordinator as well earlier today.
Yeah, you said it. That was one of the most entertaining games. And I've got some Giants fans in my life that said that. They said, I don't even care if we win the game. I'm not even upset that we lost in overtime. But man, oh man, was that game entertaining. And we've tried to tell you guys on this very fine program all season long, just give him a shot and wild things will happen. And we got the full experience yesterday. One of the more entertaining games in the NFL this season.
Yeah. Jahmyr Gibbs, speaking of entertainment, 2 massive runs for the Lions in that one, scoring on the first play of overtime, and then the Giants getting held off on their possession as the Lions win that game again in overtime. Yeah, very entertaining performance all the way around from a 2-9 team. Is that what the Giants are?
2-10 now. Yeah, you're right. And that was a massive win for the Lions, because if you had lost that game somehow, you basically have set yourself up for little to no room for error coming down the stretch. Got the Packers coming up, on Thanksgiving, which is going to be pretty wild. So need to take care of business, and got the big win versus a Giants team that, if Russ is starting that game, maybe if Dart is starting that game, we don't get anything as chaotic as we saw, but with Brother Winston at the helm. It was the full experience, and we were all witnesses to the great epic performance. One of the best games of the year.
Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator for the Giants, who is no longer he gone.
Hey, and by the way, real quick, you got defensive line weapons like the Giants got, and that's all you're doing, and that's how your defense has performed thus far, then yeah, see you later.
Monday Night Football, Carolina at San Francisco tonight. The Panthers 6-5, the 49ers 7-4, and as we mentioned, the 49ers trying to keep pace in the NFC West. Can ill afford a loss.
No, I mean, this is not a pure elimination game, but man, it feels like a little bit of an elimination game between these two teams here. And who would have thought we would say that about the Panthers, who have risen from the ashes? They're now tied with the Bucks for the division lead. So maybe they're not all the way out of the woods with the loss tonight. San Francisco, meanwhile, that is an awfully crowded division, as you said, in the NFC West. And as great of a job, Shanahan is in the front runner for Coach of the Year odds, but it may not be enough. They're going to need to win this game tonight. It'll be a fun little sneaky good showdown, when on paper at the start of the year, we were all laughing, saying, why in the world is this game chosen as Monday Night Football?
Well, yeah, now we know. Let's take a break here as we continue the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we will talk with Steve Irvine of the Birmingham Banner. Talk a little UAB football. Stick around.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Nashville's Nutcracker, presented by Nashville Ballet, returns to TPAC November 29th through December 28th. This holiday season, audiences will journey with Clara and the Nutcracker Prince through Nashville's history and the land of sweets. Tickets on sale at NashvilleBallet.com.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Welcome back into the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. And as we await the arrival of Steve Irvine from the Birmingham Banner, interesting weekend in Birmingham. Apparently, offensive lineman Daniel Mincy, again, stabbed a pair of his teammates prior to UAB's game against South Florida. Both of them were in stable condition as of the end of the 48-18 USF victory, but wild stuff out of Birmingham.
Yeah. Crazy story, right? And sitting there at $90,000.
I don't think
bond.
I've ever heard of anything like that.
No, this is about as bizarre as it gets. And you're talking about a kid that transferred from Kentucky, presumably trying to revitalize his career. And then before, a game, we're talking about him being held in jail for $90,000 bond. And, I'm curious, Steve's kind of comments, because, man, it's been an unusual season, and it certainly has been an unusual seasons in Birmingham. And this is kind of risen as the wildest highlight thus far.
Yeah, I mean, again, Trent Dilfer somehow evaded getting dismissed last year. As bad as things were equally as bad, if not worse, this time around. They finally did dismiss him. Alex Mortensen was elevated to the head position on an interim basis. They won their first game under Mortensen, kind of cramping Memphis's hopes of being that group of 5 team to reach the college football playoffs, but they've not won since. They're 1-3 now under Mortensen, including Saturday's loss. So it's been quite the season, and this in on top of it. Wow. It's unfathomable. I mean, I just don't know anywhere else that you've heard of anything quite like that.
Yeah, this is a story that feels like you only hear of, in movies, right? Or, TV shows. This feels a little more crazy than usual. This is not even SEC level of crazy. This is kind of something that you only hear, like I said, on the big screen. So real kind of curious to see how they shake out. And I mean, obviously at that point when Mortensen addresses the team, understandably, a few players decide not to play at that point and says, "Hey, I respect your decision." I don't know. I can't imagine being put in that situation where, hey, go out and play. Never mind the fact that two of your teammates have suffered a crazy, tragic situation, and your third is being held behind bars on $90,000
right.
for a bond. I mean, that's
yeah.
just wild
Two of your teammates have suffered something like that at the hands of another teammate.
Right.
Now, let's go out and do senior day. Yeah, it's bizarre is really the only thing I can come up with for it. It's indescribable. So hopefully we can get Steve in again to talk a little bit more about this. Their season still isn't over with either, I don't believe.
No, I got at least one more game this week.
Yeah. Trying to find their schedule here, but it's just a nutty situation all the way around. Though again, a offensive lineman at the University of Alabama Birmingham stabs a couple of his teammates prior to their matchup with South Florida this weekend, a game that they do lose again, 48-18 to fall to 3-8. What's next for UAB? Should be their season finale this weekend at Tulsa. So Tulsa, which is kind of put together a nice little season of their own. So it'll be interesting to see what takes place in this one to close things out. I lied. Tulsa's 4-7. Tulsa beat Oklahoma State earlier this year, which was the last straw for Mike Gundy in Stillwater. Yeah, but since then, now they defeated Army this past weekend. They beat Oregon State the weekend before that. Those two wins snapped a 5-game losing streak. They beat Oklahoma State. They lost after that to Tulane, Memphis, East Carolina, Temple, and FAU before their wins over Oregon State and Army. So UAB 3-8, Tulsa 4-7 to close out the season out in Oklahoma this weekend, as we continue to hope for the arrival of Steve Irvine from the Birmingham Banner to discuss further the events of the weekend down in Birmingham with the Blazers. Wade, as we await Steve's arrival.
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute. Do we have him? We do have him. Steve Irvine from the Birmingham Banner. Steve, are you there?
I am, Maurice. Can you hear me?
We can. Yeah.
Good.
Hey, thanks for joining us, man. Have you recovered from Saturday?
It was one of the most bizarre days. I've been doing this a long time, and it was one of the most bizarre days. But it's I guess recovered. I guess you could say I am, but it was something different. That's for sure.
So I know that typically when you're covering college football, you may get there a couple of hours ahead just to kind of get settled in and, kind of see if everybody that you expect to play is going to play, different things like that. But, when did this happen relative to kickoff, and, how were y'all apprised of that situation?
Well, it happened at about 10:20, I think, was the time that they put down of exactly around. So about 10 o'clock, a little bit after 10 o'clock. Kickoff was at 2. I actually was getting out of the shower, and in fact, just getting ready to go, and just got a statement that was sent to me from the Sports Information with no details, just a statement of there's been a incident or something. I don't remember exactly what it said. But there was no details, and I thought, well, this is kind of weird. So I made a phone call, and I thought, at the very worst, I thought it might have been two players fighting and one of them, broke their jaw or something. I mean, it was something like that. And then I made a couple of phone calls and found out what was really going on. And, then it's kind of got dressed real in a hurry and just sort of drove. I live an hour away from Birmingham, so I just drove and was on the phone pretty much the whole time on the drive there. And just got there, just not knowing what to expect when I got to the stadium too. That's the thing with, a lot of people were saying, well, they've even said since that, there was a moment where they weren't sure where they're going to play or who would play, or, a lot of players were wanting to opt out because of the situation, obviously. And so, I really got to the stadium thinking, am I going to be the only one here, type thing, or who's going to be there, I think. Mm-hmm. And so it was a strange, it was just a strange time. And they end up getting to the stadium, the players that played, or the part of the team that played, right about the time they were supposed to. So a couple hours before kickoff. So, and then they went from there. But it was it was just a very surreal sort of game.
Steve, how many players?
I can't imagine. What?
Go, real quick, Steve, going over this before you just arrived.
Go ahead, Wade.
Several players sat out, understandably, and I'm curious, how many players was UAB short by the time this thing really got kicked off on Saturday?
Well, I think it was somewhere in the area of like a dozen. Okay. They never really officially, just kind of trying to figure it out when we were there. But I would say between probably 12 and 15. Some of them, probably most of them were guys that were going to be rotation guys. But it was, I would say about that. They like for example, they had they said they were going to honor 29 seniors, and I think I counted 21. Now a couple of those could have been other issues that also, but so I would say probably between 12 and 15, and we'll see. Even moving forward is still unclear right now on if everybody's going to play this in the last game at Tulsa, or if there's some that are going to sit out too. So it was rough, but there was a time, I think, when they really were wondering if anybody would want to play after what happened.
Understandably so. And then my next question was, do we have an update, a health update on the those that were stabbed in this situation?
Yeah, both of them. Fortunately, both of them are out of the hospital and are recovering. There was one with one had a little more serious or a lot more serious injuries than the other, but they're both with family, and I don't know if they're back home or if they're here, but they're both of them are out of the hospital and recovering and should be fine, or will be fine.
Good.
Fortunately.
No indication, I don't guess, of what prompted this, Steve?
No, I mean, from what I've been able to find out and talk to some people, it was just it started with a practice fight, or just sort of a something that happened in practice the day before, and I don't know if it how far it carried over after practice, but it was just one of those strange things, and it's not I mean, y'all know, I mean, you've been around, I mean, there's fights every day, and some of them are worse than others, obviously, but I mean, I'm at practice a lot, and I don't see that many fights out there, to be honest with you. And it was something that occurred during a practice and just somehow carried over to the unimaginable. It really did.
Steve, also then, do we have an update legally with Daniel Mincy, that is, the assailant, I guess, or accused at least at this point? Do we have an update on his legal status as we sit here Monday afternoon?
No update really from the other day. He has been charged with aggravated assault and attempted murder, and he is in the Jefferson County Jail, as we speak. I haven't checked today to make sure, but last I heard, there's no bond or no bail as of this point. So he's as far as I know, he's still in the jail, and I don't know what the next step yet is on that.
He's listed on their roster as a 6'4" redshirt freshman. We talked about right before you arrived. He was previously at Kentucky. Was this an impact player already, or was this a guy that was maybe biding his time before he got in the mix in a year or two, perhaps?
Yeah, he was not an impact player at all. Had not played, But then now when they signed him, they thought he had a really good chance to compete for a job. They thought he was going to be a center. He can play all the way through, but they had hoped he was going to be a guy that could compete for the center job, and just wasn't there yet. It was a guy that a scout team guy, had been with them all year, but had not played in a game. But I think they thought that he might have a future as a player, but was just not ready at this point, and again, and not played in a game. But I know when they signed him and when he came in, they were very excited about it. They thought that he had the ability to at some point be a player for him.
Steve Irvine of the Birmingham Banner joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Steve, there's been a lot to go on with this program over the last couple of years. Nothing that necessarily rose to this level, but a lot of things kind of out of place here. How does UAB get headed back in the right direction with everything else that's been going on, and now this?
Well, that's a good question. I think if we knew the answer to that, I don't know that anybody knows the answer to that right now. Obviously it starts, it starts with getting through this situation. It really does. And I will say this, I do think that they have done an outstanding job of trying to help these current players get through a situation that they never thought would happen. And I think they've done a great job of thinking about the mental health aspect of it, and just getting them help through that if they need help, and making it very known and very, very obvious that if they need to step away for, whether it be a game or practice, a moment, whatever it may be, that they need to step away, and they'll have help there for them. And so I think it starts there, and I do think they've taken the right steps there. But this is not something that's going to happen overnight, and then the next thing is, they got to make the right hire, and honestly, with this situation, on top of where they're at as a program right now, I don't know how that's going to affect the situation of trying to find a coach. A coach that might have been interested before might look at it now and go, man, do I want to go into that? If that, and again, this is I think the one thing that we all got to be aware of is this isn't a culture thing from what I've seen, at least. And I'm out there a lot. This is a one person type thing. Not that, I don't know these kids obviously, but I don't think that this is, this isn't a case where, back in the day when you heard about Oklahoma having, guns in their locker room and stuff like that. This isn't like that, but as a coach, as a prospective coach, you look at it and go, well, I'm interested in it. But when this happens, you got a question like, do I want to go into the middle of that? If this happened, do I want to go in the middle of that? So, we'll see. But again, moving forward, it starts with who's going to be in leadership, moving forward. And I'll say this, I think Alex Mortensen has really handled this whole situation, not just Saturday, not just this incident, but I think he's handled from day one such a tough situation with a lot of class, a lot of maturity, a lot of, here's a guy who's never been a head coach, and he's handling some things that, that a lot of veteran head coaches would struggle with, and handling in a really good way. So, I don't know if he'll be what kind of candidate he is to stay. I don't see it right now, but I think he'd be able to handle the situation if that's the need. But we'll see. We'll see where they go with the coaching search, and and go from there.
Steve, I wanted to ask you. We talked a little bit about, the matchup versus Tulsa, kind of at the bottom of the American standings.
How viable is Bill Clark for
let's get Mo in there.
Well, It depends. I think if I think a big part of Bill Clark deciding, obviously his health was bad. I mean, not bad health, but he had a bad back. But his relationship with Mark Ingram, the athletic director, was not good. And so I don't think that he's viable at all if there's not a change in the leadership. At the athletic director, which at this point I don't think there is. I mean, I think Mark Ingram's here and is going to be here. So I think in that case, Bill Clark is not viable. If there's a change in leadership, I think he's very viable. I mean, I think Bill would come back. You got to remember with Bill Clark is, man, this is his baby, man. I mean, obviously he didn't start football here, but he was here for the return, and he was the reason. He's really the reason they're still playing today, in my opinion, because of what he did back then, staying with the program, doing what he did. That run was amazing, So, I think if everything was right, then I think he would be very viable. But again, it's not going to be with the current leadership. That's just the way it is. I mean, that's just, and I'm not saying one side's right or wrong. I mean, that's not my place to say. I just think that, if the leadership's the same, you will not see Bill Clark.
Wade, go ahead.
Yeah, Steve, while we got you here, let's kind of glance. We've talked a little bit about the bottom of those American standings, and I'm curious just from what you've seen. And man, this has been a fun league, and to try and watch, number one, but also kind of forecast who maybe is playing their best ball right now in the American, and who are we ultimately going to see maybe probably climb out of this league from that bucket, so to speak, and ultimately represent this group of 5 spot in the playoff, in your mind?
Well, I tell you what, I think as far as the season's gone on, it's here late. I think North Texas is playing as probably better than anybody in the conference. And this is a top-heavy, really good top-heavy conference. And I just love what North Texas is doing with Drew Messamaker, and Eric Morris has done an amazing job. And they're going to have a hard time. They're working on trying to keep him monetarily, because he certainly fits for. For some of these schools that are looking for a head coach, Oklahoma State for one, and I think he'd do well at Arkansas. But I think it's going to end up being North Texas and Tulane in the championship game. Tulane is just so steady. They're not flashy. John Summerall, who's an incredible coach, is never happy. He's never. He's I think that's the key. I mean, he's never happy, which is good. I think that's good. I mean, I'm a huge John Summerall fan, and I think those two will probably meet in the championship game. And in my mind, I think the winner of that should be your representative. I know if it's Tulane, they'll have 2 losses. If it's North Texas, they'll have 1. But if it's Tulane, I think that 2-loss Tulane team is a better representative than James Madison with one loss, just with who they haven't had to play and had to get through this. Because honestly, I think South Florida is a playoff caliber team. They just didn't do enough. Didn't do the things down the stretch. But I think they're playoff caliber. I think East Carolina really came on and played real well. Navy, you sort of forget about Navy, and because they're kind of in the background a little bit, but this is a really good Navy team, and so I think that they've had to get out of the American Conference to as far as playoffs go. I think it's a lot tougher than get out of the Sun Belt Conference is right now. So I think again, I think it's North Texas and Tulane in the championship game, provided something crazy doesn't happen this week, and then we'll see where it falls from there.
Kind of with that being said, Steve, similar question, but a little different. Of those top 6 teams, but maybe take Navy out just because they're such a unique situation. And when I'm talking about North Texas, Tulane, South Florida, maybe even ECU and Memphis, among those 5 teams, how many of them are going to be looking at coaching changes this offseason, you think, as some of those higher programs come calling in your mind?
Well, I think definitely Tulane. I mean, I think everything's kind of fall. John Summerall is a really patient coach. I mean, he's really patient. He's waited his opportunity. But I think there's just too much out there for him to be able to stay at Tulane. I really do. Especially if Lane Kiffin goes to LSU, and then Ole Miss opens, and you have provided John Summerall still out there. I know he coached. He was an assistant at Ole Miss and loved it there. What's going to happen in Kentucky with are they going to make a change? And that's where John Summerall played. And then you got Auburn already chasing them, and so I think I can't imagine that John Summerall is not going to leave. I really can't. But he is patient. But I think Eric Morris would be smart if he gets the right opportunity, because I think he's as hot as he's ever been, as far as a candidate wise. And that's not to say he can't stay there and keep winning. But I think there's a couple things out there for him. Other than that, I don't know. I think Alex Golesh might have a chance, but I think Alex Golesh, one thing you have to look at on Alex Golesh, in my opinion, I think this is other people I've heard talking about this, is, he's kind of done less with more. Excuse me. He has, they've got a really good budget for an American Conference team, and he's at the top. Toward probably him and Memphis, maybe Tulane. Those three are right there. But what Alex Golesh has been good, real good. Well, he's been good, but he hasn't got over that hump with really more resources than most everybody else in the conference. So to me, I think he's got to stay there a year or two more to prove. I think he's got some stuff to prove. That doesn't mean that maybe an Oklahoma State won't come get him now. He might. He might be gone, and I think it would be a good hire. But I still think he's got a little stuff to prove. Again, because when you're winning more with less, well, that's that jumps out. But when you have more and you're not winning a championship in 3 years, that speaks volumes to me. And so I think he could get out. Other than that, I don't think Ryan Silverfield is he's a guy. He's had a lot of success at Memphis. I think he's a good football coach, but I don't think he's done quite enough to be a slam dunk type hire at somewhere. So I just think he might be back at Memphis. So I really think at this point, probably if Alex Golesh does get out, probably those three at this point.
If a team were to lose, among those, their head coach, which one of those is maybe on the shakiest ground, as if to say, oh man, as soon as this coach leaves, I'm really concerned about the program going forward. Because I'm always fascinated at the group of five, how much of that is tied to budget, NIL, et cetera, and how much is it tied to, hey, we just got the right coach at the right time, and we produced some magic. So I'm curious if that plays at all in your mind.
Well, he does, and then I think probably North Texas, really, because I think now they put a lot of money into it, and they've really done a great job with their facilities, and and they've got money. But Eric Morris, he's transformed that program. John Summerall came into a good situation at Tulane, and I think they'll find another guy. Now, Alex Golesh did turn South Florida around. But again, he hasn't won a championship, and Eric Morris hadn't won a championship yet. But from when he took it over to today, in 3 years, has been pretty spectacular, really. And so I think, just looking at it from the outside, I think that probably North Texas. Now, again, if you make the right hire, no matter where you're at, you're fine. But they'd have to make the right hire.
And then kind of final question, which I said about 2 questions ago, but where does UAB come into this? Are they a right coach away from being kind of suddenly back in the mix in the American in your mind?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. I mean, I think if they make a good hire, I just think you look at now Bill Clark wasn't in the American Conference. I understand that, but you look at what he meant to this. And so, yes, I think if they have the right coach, because I think and I think they got a lot of work now. So the right coach is a start, I guess, because they still got to get their budget better. They still, the facilities are fantastic. Facilities are fine. They're good. They're golden in the facilities, but they've got to get their budget right, got to get their NIL right. So that's going to be important too. But I do think if they get the right coach in here, they certainly can transform pretty quickly, back into, what they were. I really do.
Steve Irvine of the Birmingham Banner joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Steve, we appreciate you taking some time with us this afternoon and your insight, and look forward to catching up with you under better conditions.
Yeah, man, it's great. It's always great talking to you guys, and yeah, hopefully we're a little calmer days ahead.
Yeah.
Sounds good. We appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, take care, guys.
See you.
All right. Mark, can we skip the final break, or do we need to take it?
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
All right. Let's head into our final segment as we wrap up the weekend and look at some other college football activity from the weekend. Let's start with Senior Day over at First Bank Stadium at Vanderbilt. Diego Pavia always seems to put on a show, and Saturday was no exception. 532 total offensive yards in his final home game, all 6 touchdowns, as Vanderbilt took care of Kentucky 45-17. As if there was any chance that he would ever be forgotten in black and gold, he made sure that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah, saw a situation we're not used to seeing very often, Mo, right? We saw Vanderbilt become the bully, and they just roughed it up on Kentucky. So years of frustration being taken out on a Saturday afternoon over on the west side of town. Pavia, maybe, likely, possibly cementing himself as at least a Heisman finalist, and maybe, possibly, likely, Vanderbilt putting itself into position for a winner-take-all type situation this weekend versus Tennessee, where they might wiggle into the college football playoff. They went for the style points, and they got the style points. If that is to be factored into it at all, if that was their goal, they certainly got them this weekend versus Kentucky.
I've had a couple of folks ask me if this is the biggest UT Vanderbilt game ever, and I certainly don't cover ever, but I cannot think of another one where both the teams taking part in it have been as good as they are. Vanderbilt improving to 9-2, first 9-win season since 2012, first 9-win regular season since 1915. Tennessee improving to 8-3 with their 31-11 win down at Florida, and a lot of folks bothered the fact that they didn't score more points after leading 31-0 at the half. But I kind of saw, or I think I saw, where Josh Heupel was coming from in the second half. No need in extending this game by throwing the ball all over the place. Let's just keep it on the ground. Let's just get out of here without getting anybody hurt. We've they won at Florida for the first time since 2003. They covered. So I'm not sure what else there was to do. I mean, they probably could have further exercised some demons with a bigger margin, but yeah, I think Florida knows that it could have been worse if they had decided they wanted to.
Yeah, and it's the interesting part too is I don't know the relationship that Heupel's got with some of them coaches, in particular Gonzalez down there, right? I mean, why run it up? I know all the rivalry, and I know the fan base wants you to score 100 on them, but in kind of a wounded dog situation there, don't necessarily exercise that. To your point about the Tennessee Vanderbilt game, it's the most important one for one team in particular, but yeah, collectively, you're right. Record-wise, collectively, this is probably the biggest game that there's ever been. It is a little bit of a shame that Tennessee is on the outside looking in, because if there was a remote chance that they could get in, this would be a mammoth showdown. Instead, it's only a mammoth showdown through the lens of one team, and in the wildest scenario possible, we're talking about Tennessee playing spoiler to Vanderbilt for the college football playoff, perhaps this weekend.
Isn't that something? There's only one team that's got a shot at the playoff at this time, and that team's an underdog going into this ball game.
Yeah, Vegas clearly decided, and not to be surprising, especially the way Tennessee performed on Saturday. If they had gone out and lost, maybe you see Vanderbilt roll in as a favorite, but there's a lot of history, just like Tennessee going into the swamp. There's a lot of demons that Vanderbilt is going to have to try and conquer, and that is a preseason top 25 roster on the other sideline. So if Vanderbilt is going to get in, we've talked about it for 4 weeks in a row now. This is their last remaining quote unquote big game. The good news for them is Tennessee won, so it kind of still keeps that status intact heading into the rivalry showdown.
Yeah, this would be it feels like this would be a good win for Vanderbilt if they were to get it, particularly on the road, even though Tennessee still hasn't beaten a team with a winning record, as we discussed with Christopher Gabriel on Friday when we had him on. And beating a 3-7 Florida did not help that, obviously, but it's going to be an interesting ball game, obviously, because Vanderbilt got so much on the line, and Tennessee not used to being in the spoiler role here, but you feel like they're going to embrace it. So should be captivating. Some other outcomes that kind of jumped out at me, Wade, across the weekend. Stanford 31, Cal 10. Justin Wilcox is out at Cal.
Yeah, crazy, right? I mean, about 6 weeks ago, Cal still had a very viable chance to make the ACC title game, and we were talking about Wilcox as maybe your coach of the year in that league, and then suddenly things have crumbled, and man, they've got a very interesting situation because this just comes 10 days or so after we saw JKS announce that he's coming back to Cal. So you have your crown jewel, maybe the best freshman quarterback, certainly in the ACC, maybe one of the top in the entire country, who's committed to Cal, but that's before you go out and fire Wilcox. So it could be very, very interesting to see how that offseason shapes out. But yeah, Saturday was cool, man. Seeing the axe kind of back on the line in all its glory was fun. And Stanford finally gets the win in the regular season, a kind of finale there between those two rivals.
In an ACC rivalry there, Stanford with the win over Cal. Speaking of ACC or ACC adjacent, Notre Dame 70, Syracuse 7. We were talking about Tennessee running it up or not. David Wilson was excited about this one, but goodness gracious, 70 points against, I don't know. I thought a decent Syracuse team. I don't know is this just indicative of just how good Notre Dame is? I think they scored 3 times before their offense got on the field.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you put up 70, but 21 zip before your offense set foot out on the field. I mean, we can't help it. Our defense was running those fumbles and passes back for touchdowns. What do you want? What do you want from us? We were going to have to run it up. But yeah, a chance at style points. And if Notre Dame, if there was any, question, any last little tidbits, perhaps lingering on their resume, we still don't really, the real insiders, speaking of Stanford, they do got to go to Stanford this weekend, I guess. But if the real insiders had already made up their mind on Notre Dame, I don't know who is probably getting swayed by this result, but Marcus Freeman felt compelled to run it up no matter what.
Wade, you were all over this one on the Wonder Slate. Pitt 42, Georgia Tech 28.
I told you guys Friday, classic ACC rule. When Pitt has a chance to win a game they are supposed to of major significance, they will not. When Pitt has a chance to play spoiler, Pat White and Steve Slayton and Rich Rod and those guys remember that one all too well back in the mid 2000s, right? Pitt will get in there and muck it up with the best, and Notre Dame goes Georgia Tech goes bye-bye at the hands of the Pitt Panthers. Really an embarrassing loss for Georgia Tech. It really, really could have been, if not for some late points to get back in the game.
Yeah. Finally, anybody that was looking at going bowling with the Tar Heels will not. Duke 32, North Carolina 25, and a lot of Belichick detractors happy with that one.
Man, and how about Duke, by the way, who was, I don't know if they're still alive, but they ran the fake field goal down 2 late in the game they said, we ain't going for the field goal. We're going for the fake and the touchdown to stick it in our rivals there. Well played.
You got to like that. That's what rivalries are all about, right? So, big win for the Blue Devils. Like that one. That is going to do it for the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Be sure and join Wade and Calvin White tomorrow at 2 o'clock as we finish off feast week with Tuesday's show. Y'all have a great Thanksgiving holiday. I'll see you next Monday. Wade will see you next Monday, but Wade will also see you tomorrow. Have a good one.